In this video, I'm going to teach you the algebraic definitions you need to know to solve algebraic expressions and to evaluate, plus how to solve exponents. Before you can start algebra, you need to know some basic definitions because this will help you understand everything that's about to be explained. The first thing right here is variables. A variable is a symbol used to represent various numbers. So for this, it's going to be anything. X, Y, M, P, R. They're going to use any letter to represent a number. That's what a variable is, a letter used to represent a number. The next thing you need to know is an expression. Expression is two or more numbers, but the biggest key is that there is no equals sign. Right? So if I just have 3 plus 4, now I'm sure you know that that's 7, but with no equal sign, this is just considered an expression. Another expression you could have is 3r, right? We just learned we can use variables to represent numbers. So sometimes you'll just have 3r, or a number with a variable. That is an expression. Next, an algebraic expression is just something with a variable, like I just showed you. So 3r, 2x, 46y, just anything that has a variable in it is an algebraic expression. Now when you talk about substituting, we're replacing that variable, that letter, with the number. So for example, if I say 3r, but I want r to equal 2, I'm going to take my 2 and put it in for r. So then it would become 3 times 2. And this is what you call substituting. Now when you solve that problem, this is 3 times 2, and you get 6. That is called evaluating. It's the answer you get once you substitute. So now, let's just try some example problems. In this example, we have y plus 8, and we want y to equal 9. So I'm just going to take 9 and stick it in for y. So now I have 9 plus 8. When you add those together, you get 17. So this is our algebraic expression. Now we are substituting in our 9, and we're evaluating to get 17. Let's try the problem on the right. We have k wants to be 4, so I have to stick this 4 in for both of these k's. So k is now 4 plus 3 plus 4. When you add those together, 4 plus 3 is 7. 7 plus 4 then is 11. For this example, we have a division problem. They want x to be 10 and y to be 5. So I'm going to plug those in. 10 over 5, 10 divided by 5 is 2. Now over here, when we have two letters connected, there's really a multiplication symbol in there. They want my A to be 3 and my B to be 7. So A becomes 3 times 7, and 3 times 7 is 21. We've done some basic problems, but you're going to get some more problems with more groupings and more numbers and more variables. So what do we do about that? You have to know which order to do them in to get the correct answer. So the first thing you have to understand is the grouping symbol. Sometimes there'll be parentheses, or sometimes it'll be a division bar. So parentheses, right, are when things are inside the parentheses, or fraction bar is when you're dividing. Now, what you need to remember is that you need to do all the computations, meaning simplify everything inside of the parentheses and everything above and below the division bar before you continue to solve. There's something else you're definitely going to want to get into your notes. Now, when you're dealing with these groupings, there's an order to how you want to simplify the problem to get the correct answer. The first thing you have to do is you have to do your parentheses, which we just talked about. And you'll notice over here, I'm going to show you a little acronym to help you remember what order. Parentheses starts with a P. We're going to remember the word please. After the parentheses, you're going to want to do all of your exponents first. And if you haven't learned exponents yet, that's okay. You can check out my video that teaches you all about how to use exponents. The E in exponents is going to stand for the word excuse. Then you're going to have multiplication, and that's going to stand for the word my. Division stands for the word dear. Addition for the word aunt. And subtraction for the word Sally. So if you don't now, get this down in your notes. And when you do, remember the acronym. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And those beginning letters help you remember the order of parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So now let's try some problems where we put this into practice, simplifying our problems down and evaluating in this order to get the correct answer. Okay, for this problem, they want A to be 5 and B to be 2. So the first thing I'm going to do is rewrite 5 parentheses, 3 plus 2, end your parentheses. Now you have to remember for grouping, they said we must do the piece inside the parentheses first. So 5 parentheses, 3 plus 2 is 5. And if you're not sure, 5 parentheses 5, this just means multiplication. So 5 times 5, which is 25. So here we did the parentheses first, and then we did the multiplication. For this next problem, we only are substituting one variable. They want B to be 3. So 14 minus 3 plus 5 in our parentheses. We must simplify our parentheses first. So the 14 minus is going to come straight down. 3 plus 5 is 8. 14 minus 8 then is 6. Now for this problem, they want us to substitute H for 5. So 36 divided by 4 plus 5. And again, we must do our parentheses first. So 36 divided by 9. And 36 divided by 9 is 4. Okay, this is a fun one. We have a fraction bar and 2 variables. So let's plug in and see what we need to simplify first. So they want x to be 7 and y to be 3. So let's rewrite. So instead of x, we have 7 plus 5 in the numerator. Here's our division bar. And 2 times y, so we can do 2 parentheses 3 to represent multiplication. Now again, we must simplify the numerator and the denominator first. So 7 plus 5 is 12, and 2 times 3 is 6. So 12 divided by 6 is 2. Now let's try a longer problem. We're going to replace C with 3 and M with 2. So we have 4 times, because remember when the number is next to the variable, it means multiplication. 4 times 3 plus 6 divided by 2. Now, we need to think about our please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Anytime you're dealing with multiplication and division, you can do those two together in the same row. But we also have an addition sign here. So what we need to do first is this piece and this piece, and our plus sign is going to stay in the center because we need to simplify our multiplication and our division first. So 4 times 3 is 12, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So 12 plus 3 equals 15. Here's another division bar problem. A is going to be 4, B is going to be 2. So we have 2 times 4 plus 2 over 5. So again, in the numerator, we must do our multiplication first. So I'm going to do here, this part we're going to do first. So 2 times 4 is 8, and we have our plus 2 in the numerator, all over 5. Now we must simplify our numerator first. 8 plus 2 is 10, so 10 divided by 5, which gives us 2. Hopefully learning these definition terms to some algebra makes the problem a little easier. Make sure you remember to follow, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, when you're evaluating, you will always get the problem right. Let's learn all about exponents. When you have exponents, you'll notice there's usually two numbers or sometimes a variable and a number. The big number right here is called your base, and the small guy in the corner, he is called your exponent. And the way that you would read this problem is 2 to the 8th. That's how you can read this, 2 to the 8th. Or 2 to the 8th power. Sometimes it's called the 8th power. But the 2 and the 3 have special names. Anything to the 2nd power is called squared. Anything to the 3rd power is called cubed. Any number after that, you just say the number and say it's to that power. Now that you know how to read this as 2 to the 8th power, what does that mean? This exponent means you want the base that many times. So what this means is I want 2 8 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. So I have 8 2's. That's what that means as an exponent. So an exponent means that's how many times you want this number. And then what we would do is we'd go through and multiply all that, right? So 2 times 2 is 4. But now you have to multiply that 4 times this 2, and you get 8. Then times this 2, right? And then we get 16. And then times this 2, and then we get 32. And then times this 2, right? And we get 64. And then we keep multiplying it until we have our 2 8 times. So now let's do some practice problems. Now let's look at examples with exponents and parentheses to see if we can figure out the difference. In this problem, it's 3 times y to the 4th. So what does that mean? We have a 3 and I want 4 y's. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And all of these are being multiplied in between. Okay? But now when we look at this other side, we're trying to figure out if these two things are equal. When we look over here, I want this whole thing in parentheses 4 times. So this means I want 3y times 3y times 3y times 3y. So as you look at these two sides and you decide, are these two things equal? Over here you see you only have 1 3 on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, you have 4 3's. So these two things are not going to be equal. So the thing you have to remember is that your parentheses matter big time. So make sure you're paying attention to this when we solve these problems. Now we're going to try an example where we substitute in a value for x. So 2 is going to sub in for x. So we want 2 to the 4th power. That means I want 4 2's. So 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which we kind of already did in the beginning problem. But 2 times 2 is 4, and then you've got times 2, right? These guys have got to come down. So now 4 times 2 is 8, and then this 2's got to come down. So you end up with 8 times 2, which is 16. So 2 to the 4th power is 16. It is different than 2 times 4. Right? Because if we did 2 times 4, that gives us 8. So notice that 2 to the 4th power is different than 2 times 4. The biggest hint that I can give you is when you have an exponent, the best thing to do is write it all out and start multiplying from the left to the right to simplify your answer. Okay, for this problem, we're going to substitute 2 in for y. So we have 5 times 2 cubed. So the first thing we want to do in our order of operations is simplify in here. So 5 times 2 is 10, 10 to the 3rd power. That means I want 10 3 times. So we have 10 times 10 times 10. So first 10 times 10 is 100. Times another 10, So now we have 100 times 10, and anytime you multiply by 10, you can just annex another 0 to the end. So we have 1,000 would be our answer for 10 cubed. Remember, 10 to the third power, or you can read this as 10 cubed. Okay, so now let's simplify with exponents. So 10 to the fifth power is we want 10 5 times. And 10 to the third means you want it 3 times. Well, if you've learned simplification before, and if not, make sure to check out my other video on how to simplify. A number over itself is just 1. So we can go ahead and simplify 3 groups of 10. Now we have 10 times 10 left, which you can either say is 10 squared, right? Because 10 2 times, or you can multiply 10 times 10, right? And that gives you 100. Either one of these is acceptable and the right answer, and they're the same, right? Because 10 squared, notice when it's 2, we call it squared. 10 squared is 100. It's 10 times 10. So let's simplify this one. 8 to the 6th power divided by 8 squared. So we're just going to write it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All over 8 squared, 8, 8. So then our 8s, 2 sets of 8s will simplify down to 1, which means we are left with 8 to the 4th. Or if you have your calculator, you can go ahead and multiply 8 times 8, which is 64, times 8 more, right? So sometimes depending on how large the number is, you can just go ahead and write the number to the power for your answer. Hopefully this video gave you a basic understanding of how to solve algebraic expressions. Make sure to subscribe, share the video with any other friends you have going through algebra, and if you have any questions, make sure you comment below so I can solve your problems.